Good evening. I love Great Britain, but today Great Britain hit rock bottom. The walking, talking advert for the death penalty, Axel Rudakubana, was sentenced for the Southport massacre.
I sentence him to custody for life, with a minimum term which he must serve in custody of 52 years, less the time he's served already.
He showed no remorse, he kicked off in the dock, and he is evil personified.
It was of such extreme violence, of the utmost and exceptionally high seriousness, that it is difficult to comprehend why it was done. I am sure that Rudakubana had a settled and determined intention to carry out these offences, and that had he been able to, he would have killed each and every child, all 26 of them, as well as any adults who got in his way.
But how was he allowed to do this? Caught with a knife 10 times? Reported to prevent 3 times? He called Childline and apparently said that he wanted to kill someone. They called the police went round, they didn't do anything. The authorities, in my view, have blood on their hands. But as Britain's biggest monster began his 52-year prison sentence today, I looked around at the other news. A man in a balaclava allegedly stabbed 5 people in Croydon today. One of the victims spoke to GBNews.
He was basically stabbing people in a warehouse, at which point we had locked ourselves in an office, and I said it sounded like they were getting killed, so we decided to open the door and go and help them because it sounded like they were in trouble. At which point he turned around and sprinted towards us, and then got halfway in the door before I could shut it, and then was stabbing at me like that.
Last night, when I got home after the show, I saw this. Yeah, that was all over social media last night. A stabbing spree in Plymouth. A 40-year-old woman has sadly died. The suspect is apparently still on the run. Look at the front page of The Sun. Today, a 12-year-old boy was walking through a park in Birmingham. He was stabbed in the stomach. Unfortunately, he has died. A 14-year-old boy has been arrested on suspicion of his murder. Yesterday, a man admitted killing his ex-girlfriend and her sister with a crossbow and their mother with a knife after he broke into their home. Paedophiles caught with hundreds or even thousands of indecent images of children are not being sent to prison. They're allowed back out onto the streets to just live their lives. This is ridiculous. A man was caught with a loaded AK-47 in Leeds. He had 30 rounds of ammunition, live ammunition. He got 5 years in prison, which means basically he'd be out in 2.5. We've got illegal immigrants running rampant. 1 in 12 people in London are here illegally. Just today, an asylum seeker driving an uninsured vehicle was sent to prison after he smashed into a nurse and broke her spine 3 weeks before her wedding. That's before I've mentioned the catalogue of asylum seeker rapists that we have over here as well. There was one bit from today's sentencing of Axel Rudakubana that stood out to me, on top of everything else, of course. Listen to what the judge says here.
What he did on the 29th of July last year has caused such shock and revulsion to the whole nation that it must be viewed as being at the very extreme level of crime. His culpability and the harm he caused and intended were at the highest. I do not, however, take into account against him what happened in different parts of the country after his arrest. He did not cause that.
The judge there, despite everything we heard in court today, at pains to say that Axel Rudakubana wasn't to blame for the summer disorder. Well, look, hey, I think he was. Now, I'm not condoning the torching of a migrant hotel or any of that stuff whatsoever. But whether Rudakubana was to blame or not, personally, is irrelevant. It's all of it, isn't it? It's all of it. Every day, we see news stories like the ones I've just rattled off here. Every day, we get damning figures like this morning. The Home Office revealing the number of foreign national offenders living in the UK has tripled in the last 7 years. Or 2/3 of sexual assaults in London being committed by foreigners. It's all of it. It's every day. And it's also avoidable. Don't let wrong uns into your country. Deport the ones we have now. Don't miss all the warning signs from a lunatic like Axel Rudakubana, who has literally screamed the fact that he was going to be a serial killer from the age of about 13. Our politicians should hang their heads in shame for all of the crime that we have, but our authorities should be doing everything to stop it. They should feel awful for everything. I love Great Britain, but they are making it unbearable, and we have to get a grip. So that's my panel this evening. We are joined, of course, by broadcaster Christo Fufas. We also have former Conservative MP Anna Firth and ex-Labour Party advisor Matthew Lazar. Thank you very much for coming on the show this evening, all of you. Christo, I'll start with you on this. It's just all of it, isn't it? Non-stop. Our authorities letting us down.
We've become desensitised to it as well, I think. I think certainly in London, but as you alluded to, in many other parts of the UK, you hear about a stabbing now and you just sort of, oh, well, another stabbing. It's just the world we live in now. And it was interesting what you said, actually, about alluding to the judge's comments about the riots, because I think that those riots are were a build-up of the frustration that people have over not being listened to and not believing that the authorities are keeping them safe. They jumped to the wrong conclusions, or possibly the wrong conclusions, about this particular crime when it comes to the motivations, which we'll probably get onto. But the sentiment remains. And when you consider the number of other terror attacks that there have been, where it has been extremely obvious it's been a terror attack from the start, every single one of them. I mean, I could reel off a list of them to you right now. I mean, let's talk about the 2019 London Bridge attack, which killed 2 people. The perpetrator, known by the authorities, investigated, jailed for terrorism in 2012. The assault in Westminster, which killed 4 people. MI5 had closed their file on that perpetrator. Manchester bombing, no longer a risk, according to MI5. London Bridge and Borough Market attack. This guy had appeared in a documentary called The Jihadis Next Door.
Yeah, that's a giveaway.
Still, that would be, wouldn't it? Lee Rigby's killers, the 2 Michaels. I actually don't have time to outline the number of times MI5 looked into them. People are angry about this, and the number one contract between the state and the citizens are to keep them safe, and that's not being fulfilled.
Absolutely. Now, Anna, you, of course, took over your seat after the sad loss of David Amess, and there's a relevance here, isn't there? Because we mentioned there that Prevent were aware of Axel Rudakubana for many years, and yet here we are talking about him being sentenced to 52 years for probably the most heinous crime that I've ever come across. Do you think that our authorities, including preventing this, have been letting us down? Oh,
completely and utterly. And I have been saying now for months, if not years, that Prevent is not fit for purpose. And the Amess family just could not believe their ears. I couldn't believe my ears hearing Keir Starmer at the beginning of the week saying that these lone wolf attacks are a recent occurrence. No, they're not. Research from the Nottingham Trent University has identified 44 in recent years, and just like Christoph, I could reel off another 4 where the lone wolf attacker had already been referred to Prevent. Now, that's exactly what happened with Sir David Amess. The attacker had been seen by Prevent twice. He'd learnt on the internet what to say in the interviews, so it didn't go any further. And in fact, on one occasion, due to an admin error, they didn't even call him back. So, of course, there's got to be a public inquiry. This is totally unacceptable. But there's got to be a public inquiry for all of these attacks where the perpetrator was known to Prevent, not just this one.
I mean, look, Matthew, again, today, it was all about this, rightly so, Axel Rudakubana. But there was that Croydon mass stabbing. There was whatever happened in Plymouth last night. There was this guy with a loaded AK-47 who only got 2.5 years. That's like within the last 24 hours, all of this stuff. And I'm just thinking, what has happened to Britain? What has happened to us?
Well, I think, look, we all share the anger, the horror and the upset at what happened in Southport, and the anger at this absolutely appalling individual. I think clearly there are problems with the Prevent programme, just to, on that very specific, as we've seen case after case where the Prevent programme appears not to work. I think MI5, although sometimes make mistakes, they do prevent a lot of things happening, but I think the Prevent programme, as you say, Anna, when people can just kind of bluff their way through an interview based on, watching a YouTube video and then get ticked off the list, I think that's an issue. But I think we need to put this in context. The last year for which figures are available, which ended in March 2023, there were 590 murders, which was down down 14%. It was the lowest since 2016. So that's not to take away any of the horror of what happened, either in this case or in any murder case, you know. But I think sometimes we can just need to put it in context. And the murder rate is down. It's about 9 per million people. When I was born in 1975, which happened to be the first year on the graph on the National Statistics website, it was 7.5. It's gone up and it's come right back down again. So that's not a lot of.
It's one rate.
Absolutely no. I agree. There's a whole thing, but I just wanted to put some context.
But Matthew, I agree with what you're saying about the murder rate, but we're specifically talking about stabbings here, and knife offences have gone up 4% in the year 23 to 24. There were 49,000, which is still horrendous. They're now 51,000. A young person is now twice as likely to be stabbed than they were 10 years ago, and we now have 78 young people who are stabbed every year. This is horrendous, and we've got to get a grip. But in this Southport stabbing case, there were multiple opportunities where there were so many warning flags. I mean, how can someone go to school with a knife 10 times and not end up in a youth referral unit? How can someone go back to school when they've been expelled, turn up with a hockey stick and break another pupil's wrist and just get a youth referral order? He should have been detained.
There was some astonishing footage that was released earlier, actually, of the moment that Axel Rudakubana tried to get in a taxi and who's believed to be going to his old school, and his father has come out and managed to get him out of that taxi. There was some of that footage that was released in that basket of clips that were really astonishing to see. And
but Patrick, there's another example. How is it that home tutors, because he was expelled from school and then he didn't turn up at the special schools, home tutors were going to his home and they had to have a police escort? I mean, what's that about? The parents were calling the police because they couldn't contain him. This was someone who needed to be in a young offenders institution.
And I think that going to the parents, they clearly raised an absolute monster, but they had contacted the police. One of the times when they'd contacted the police previously, the police gave them advice on what to do with the knives in the house and how to secure them away.
How to secure knives.
No, that's not enough. So although I think there's a lot of questions around the parents, you'd wonder that perhaps they got to the point, and this doesn't excuse it.
They couldn't handle him.
Yeah, but they also probably thought, we've called the police endless times before. Nothing's actually happened as a result of calling the police. So what were they supposed to do?
A week before this incident, the father begged a taxi not to take him somewhere because he was talking about a massacre and going to another school.
I mean, I thought
the father should have taken him, Patrick, to the police station.
I was watching the sentencing in the office just round there today, and we had about 4 hours of it where it went on. And I would like to just commend the parents of the victims on their restraint,
absolutely,
and the way that they have gone about this. Because if that had been, I mean, I don't have any children, we can all imagine, but if that had been my children, there's no way I could have sat in the same room as that mum.
And seen the footage.
No.
I couldn't have sat in the same room as that guy. No. And they've somehow managed to. But then my anger would have been right for that animal, but also the stuff that we've just spoken about here now. How was this allowed to happen? Credit to the parents, Matthew, for handling themselves with so much dignity, I think.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, one can only, it's almost unfathomable what they've been through and the dignity that they've shown, how they've managed to show such dignity. And we owe it to those parents, and we owe it to the parents of every child who's murdered. And I absolutely agree with you on knife crime. We owe it to do better. As a society, we need to do better. There's no question about that. And I think we can do better. We must learn lessons, and we must have some good come out of this awful tragedy.
I'm exhausted by learning lessons. I'm exhausted by inquiries. I'm exhausted. Look at the inquiry into child abuse, where none of the recommendations have been.
Well, they're going to be now.
Been put in. I'm so sick of us talking about this and learning lessons and having endless inquiries and spending millions and then us ending up right back at square.
We can't do that. They have to be implemented.
Final word, and then we've got to go. Yeah, go on.
One strike, if you're found with a knife, you're inside. And put the sentence up. It's 4 years if you're found outside in a public place with a knife. Let's make it 10.
Look, like I said, it brought me clearly no pleasure at all to start the show today by saying that the country that I love and we all love, I genuinely feel has hit rock bottom. I looked at the news today and I thought, we cannot get any lower than this. We have to make a change.